Self-defense is self-care with expert Zen Fu.
Good morning and welcome to this morning's interview. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Yolanda Sabio of Wise and Fit to and Wise and Fit to Travel. I help women embrace the aging process and live their healthiest life. One of the topics that's near and dear to my heart is the topic of self-care. And self-care can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But today we're going to talk about self-care in a way that many people don't consider. And that is in the area of self-defense. I have with me this morning an expert in the area of self-defense. Her name is Zen Fu. Now just think of the name Zen. Right there, you know that she's got a lot to tell you. Let me tell you a little bit about Zen Fu. First of all, she's a friend that I hold dear. She is an empowerment coach, self-defense instructor, and advocate for domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. Zen's experience with domestic violence and sexual assault is deeply personal. Having survived childhood trauma, Zen entered adulthood following the same relationship patterns she was taught as a child. It took 34 years of abuse, over a decade of counseling, 2 years in a domestic violence support group, years of training in Kung Fu San Soo to be able to stand up for herself and her children, to reclaim her life and break the generational chains of her family history. This is why teaching self-defense is so important to her. That is why her heart is called to work with other survivors on their path to healing. Self-defense is a tool that helped her personally, and she now uses it to evoke healing, confidence, and empowerment, self-love, and self-worth in all women, especially in other survivors. She is passionate about supporting you in your personal self-care journey because learning self-defense and owning your power is truly the ultimate in self-care. And I couldn't agree with that more. So again, let's give a hand to Zen Fu. How are you today, Zen?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I am
Good.
so thankful that you're able to be here this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love it.
Good, good. And I don't know if you wanted to add any more, anything else on the bio that I read about you, anything else that you might want to add?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Good, good. So we're going to start, Zen, with just a few questions, if that's okay.
sure.
Okay. So a lot of people ask, Zen, how does self-defense training tie into self-care and wellness, which is what I'm all about? How does that
Mm.
gel? Talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, really, the way I look at it is that learning how to defend yourself is the ultimate self-care, because if you're not able to defend yourself, you're not able to do any of the other things as well. And I I tend to see, women especially they're so quick to do self-care things like do their hair and their nails and makeup and all that, which, I'm all about that. I love that stuff too. Um, but the last thing they think about is actually being able to know how to defend themselves. So they'll go to the gym and, work on these great bodies and work on their muscles, which is great because I'm all about that too. But, having that tight butt isn't going to help you if you don't know how to use those muscles to properly defend yourself in case someone is attacking you. So yeah, so that's the way I look at it. It's like, yes, do all these other things, and this is also something as well, to be able to maintain you and to, make sure that you come home to your family safely.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember when we first talked, and some of the things that you mentioned, I had not even thought about, but
Mm-hmm.
they are so, so important. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of, when you're on a plane and they tell you, if XYZ happens,
Mm-hmm.
protect yourself, put your oxygen mask on yourself
Mm-hmm.
before you help someone else. So yeah, it is
Yeah.
ultimate self-care. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Zen. What should a woman look for in a self-defense program? If she's going in that direction, what are some things she should look for?
That it is self-defense based and not sport based.
Ah,
Yeah. So, there is a lot of great programs, and it just really depends on what you're looking for. But if you're looking specifically for self-defense, then that would be, finding a program that, focuses on like going for the vital spots in people, like that they're not concerned about points or the ring or what referees are going to say, because if you're fighting for your life, that none of that matters. It's not about points, and so that's why I started training in Kung Fu Sansu, was because it is a Chinese military martial art, and it's about bringing down your attacker as fast as possible. So it's about going for the throat, going for the eyes, going for those vital points, kicking out the knees so they can't chase after you, stuff like that. So, like kickboxing is great exercise, and I had a lot of fun when I did it. And at the time, they kept talking about, it was an MMA gym, and they kept talking about the things that I naturally wanted to do. I wasn't allowed to do. So we weren't training to do those things. And I remember being frustrated because it was, they were telling me to stop my natural instinct to go for their throat, and kick their groin. So that's why I stopped training in that particular art, even though I had a lot of fun with it. And I do recommend it for some people, depending on what they're looking for. And, and of course, even if you do kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, yes, you can use those arts out there to protect yourself. And yeah, of course, go for the groin and the throat and stuff like that, to be able to stop them. But, at the time I was looking for something that was specifically what we trained for. So Krav Maga is a great one, and it's well known. So that's something that I'd recommend. It's very, very similar. It's pretty much identical to what I do, but we have like a longer history with it, and forms and stuff like that. Krav Maga is like, learn it fast, and, so that's a good one that I would recommend to look into.
okay. Now, since I work with a lot of mature women,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything that you would recommend, or is this what you're talking about really good for all women, no matter what age, what stage in life?
Every woman is worthy to learn how to protect herself.
Yeah.
Period. We're all worthy to be safe and to be confident. And so, yeah, women of all ages and all abilities can train and should train. I think everyone should do it. The great thing about, doing this sort of thing is you do what you're able to do with any kind of, health limitations or, physical limitations that you may have. You just, adapt to it and do what you're able to do. Like, I I can kick people in the face, but am I going to teach my general students that? No. Like, how often am I really going to kick somebody in the face if I need to? Honestly, if I'm being attacked, I'm going to be going for their knees first, you know, or possibly their groin. The groin doesn't always work, so that wouldn't be my first go-to. Sometimes it'll just piss them off more. But if you're trying to get away, you're going for the knee, you know? So most people can kick the knee or the shin or stomp on the top of the foot to make it like harder for them to run after you, stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be complicated, right? You know, because like, no matter how big a guy is or you know, no matter what, we all have the vital parts, you know, like our throat, you know. Doesn't matter how big their muscles are, if you punch them in the throat, you know, and get their Adam's apple, especially, you know, that, you know, it'll make it hard for them to breathe, you know. Think about how much it hurts to have like an eyelash or a piece of sand in your eye, you know. Even if they're, you know, no matter what the guy is, it's going to affect them, like, there's my eye, you know. And so knowing that we all have our weak points on our bodies and learning what those are, that evens the playing field. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of keeping that in mind and training to look for that and go for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you have a cane, you can use the cane. Like, I did a self-defense class a couple weeks ago, and a woman had a cane, and she just beat the crap out of that, you know, like my Bob, you know. And you know, so it's like using the tools that you have with you, you know, is very important, you know, to be able to look around and be like, oh, I can use this to defend myself, you know. And so anyone can learn to be able to defend themselves.
Okay,
So.
great.
Oh, and I do want to add that 90% of self-defense is awareness. So it's not all about the fighting, you know? So I think people tend to think that, and it's not about that. It's about being aware of your surroundings and seeing, you know, where your exits are, seeing who's coming towards you, and being able to see it, to be able to try and avoid it before it ever even comes to you is huge.
Okay. So you've already given us a few tips, you know, about being aware of our surroundings. What other safety tips do you have to share with us today?
Awareness is number one, you know. Another huge one is don't wear your earbuds in public. Please, for the love of God, don't be wearing your earplugs or your earbuds in public. I see, you know, women running and exercising out in public, which is great, but they're typically alone and they have their music going and they can't hear when somebody's coming up behind them. And that's really important to be able to, you know, to see that. So, or, you know, for them to see that you're hearing them coming, you're seeing them coming. So you are less of an easy target. They're going to be looking for somebody that's looking down at their phone, not paying attention. They have their earbuds in and they're not listening. That's a way easier victim than somebody that is aware. You know, or that has their keys in their hands and they're looking around and they're listening. You know, they're not going to go to that person first. They're going to be going to the one that's not paying attention. So that's a huge one for me, recommending. And then, you know, just paying attention, like when you're going into your car with the whole awareness thing, like when, you know, I know a lot of people have heard, you know, look in your back seat and, you know, look around your car, look for any shadows, you know, that somebody might be on the other side of your car. A big thing that I do is like when I'm going into my car, I'm looking at the reflection of the windows so that I can see if someone's coming up behind me. So I glance in the back and then I'm looking at the reflection. I do that pretty much everywhere I go. like at the bank and other places that might have that glass stuff, where you can see reflections. I'm always paying attention to who's behind me. And